episode of our show, Comic Watchers, brought to you by Comic Watch. Comic Watch is your source for all your comics and media news and reviews written by fans for fans. Don't forget to subscribe and follow us on Facebook and Twitter. Spread the word that we're coming for the clickbait sites. It's our time now. My name is Cody, and I'll be acting as the host for our maiden voyage. I'm broadcasting live from Oahu, and I'm joined today by the most ragtag bunch of misfits in fandom. We have John JJ Jack, reviewer and press corps member up in Seattle. We've got Brian Arvisu, mutant and proud, down in Tucson, Arizona. And last but not least, we have Brian Derbs Durbage, our in-house graphics design guru representing the SLC. So now that you know us a little bit, let's get down to business. Each week, we'll be bringing you the week's hottest news hottest news to start our first segment, NEWSWATCH. So, JJ, you want to kick us off?
Sure. All right. So it was revealed recently that Tom Taylor would be writing Batman Annual number 3, which would be the first of annual since Rebirth that Tom King has not written. I can only hope this means that DC is starting to come to their senses and Tom King may no longer be writing every single Batman mainline story.
And I, on the other hand, completely disagree with JJ. I think Tom King is doing an amazing job.
All right, and in other news, in other people not working on books news, Ben Percy is leaving Nightwing following issue number 56, I believe. No announcement has been made as to who will be following him up, but I'm sure I'm not alone in feeling like Ben Percy's run on Nightwing has gone on too long, and the fact that they're having tech problems / Dick is an old man / Dick and Bab should be together, and somehow that adds up to motorcycle race, and nobody understands why it is going on. But in other Ben Percy news, the Wolverine the Long Night podcast went live on Spotify last Tuesday and is going to be releasing one issue a week, one episode a week podcasts. So I've listened to the first 2, and it's pretty conventional, straightforward murder mystery, kind of along the lines of an old school radio teleplay where there's actors playing parts rather than a conventional podcast. And it's been really interesting so far, and I'm going to definitely listen to the 3rd episode when it comes out next week. I listened to it on Spotify, but they did say it's available on all your primary podcasting networks. So look for it on whatever you like to listen to. And in other news, Martian Manhunter is finally getting a series for the first time since 2015. And unfortunately, it's written by Steve Orlando. But in less unfortunate news, it is drawn by Riley Rossmo, who I love. So I will be buying it just for Riley Rossmo. And that's all I have for this week.
I'm actually looking forward to Steve Orlando. I like Steve Orlando. But
I loved Midnighter and Apollo, but I am not liking several of his books right now. I'm not reading Wonder Woman, but The Unexpected is pretty much treading water and getting worse by the issue. So we'll see where he goes from there.
Is Steve Orlando the Wonder Woman with her brother Jason?
That was James Robinson.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Who's writing?
I have to agree with Brian. I have to agree with Brian on Batman, though. Like, I think you and Cody were both like, I need to have that action Jackson Batman 80s, 90s, sock 'em, rock 'em bullcrap that we've been seeing forever. I like that it's been, like, kind of low-key and, I don't know. I've liked the build. I thought it's been pretty good. I definitely don't get the hate. But whatever.
Well, it's different. It's different strokes for different folks, and that's just fine. Some people, it's a little bit slower burn of a story, and that's just fine. People are welcome to like it. I just, we're 54 issues in right now, and I have probably liked 3 out of the last 36 issues.
Holy crap.
Yeah, it's been a brutal run for me.
I'm about in the same place as JJ right now. Like, I don't hate Tom King's run, but I've certainly read much better runs, and in much more recent history, I still miss Scott Snyder on the book. It's fine. I'm willing to wait it out. I'm willing to read it out. I mean, I've been reading Batman every month for 30 years, so.
For me, I absolutely love it because before, I mean, you guys know that Batman hasn't always, or DC itself has not been my my most history. Since Rebirth, I'm a super fan, etc. But for me, since Batman Rebirth, I've been on board 100%. I follow every week or every other week. It's a bi-weekly series. I can't get enough of it. Like, that's usually one of the first books that I read. So I actually don't have anything to reference it. I think I read a little bit before the New 52s. I read a little bit of that, and it was when Commissioner Gordon was taking Batman, and there was a robot. So I was like, this is horrible. No offense to
The super heavy arc.
Yeah, and I was just
super
like,
heavy.
I can't do this. So when I
That was one of the dumbest things I heard.
yeah,
That's
so once
low bar.
Rebirth came into effect and Tom King, so this book for me is absolutely amazing, and I feel like Tom King is hitting it out of the park every single issue. With the exception of Booster Gold, I think we can all agree that was a really hard two or three issue arc, but it actually played into why Catwoman decided to not marry Mr. Bruce Wayne. So for me,
That arc was a slap in the face to Dan Jurgens.
For me, it was an amazing arc.
Dan Jurgens isn't even dead, and he's rolling over in his grave.
So,
all right, let's move on.
RB, I'll recommend you some Batman arcs. You'll love them. It'll be way better. You'll blow your mind if King is killing you right now. All right. Sorry, please go on.
No, let's move on. Brian, what did you see this week that really sparked your interest?
Yeah, so Merry X-Men is coming December 5th. We will find out what our favorite or least favorite mutants celebrate the holidays. There will be a 25 story in one book with tons of writers attached to this oversized issue. Marvel yesterday released Age of Star Wars is coming. It's a new teaser. It's going to be a new trilogy, and it is set for, again, this December. The 3 titles, I believe, are named Age of the Republic, Age of the Rebellion, and Age of Resistance. DC Universe was released a little bit early. It was originally set for Batman Day, which was September 15th. However, I think they released on Wednesday, New Comic Book Day. Am I correct on that?
That sounds right.
Thursday, I think. So DC Daily is a daily program with what we've learned is so far is that, or it's a new program that they give out news, and that's what we're going to be reviewing. I have a new article coming out every day after it releases, kind of giving it up to ComicWatch. So what we've learned so far is that Todd Phillips released the first official photo of Joaquin Phoenix, the Joker, before he becomes the man with the twisted smile. The movie is currently set to release on October 4th. Kelly Sue, I'm going to butcher her last name, and I apologize, DeCormick, is making headlines. What is it?
DeConnick.
Okay. DeConnick is actually making headlines as the first woman to ever take on write for Aquaman. This is going to go ahead and the storyline is that DC had released a little bit of information about the storyline. Aquaman wakes up on an island of forgotten sea gods. The story will also explore his relationship with his absent mother. Jim Lee said that this will have the same effect on Aquaman as Batman Year One did to Batman. Martian the Manhunter is also coming out with a new series, as JJ announced, headed by Steve Orlando. That's all I have this week.
The DC Daily Show, that's hosted by Kevin Smith, right?
No, it's actually, I think he produces it. I don't think he has not been on the show as of yet.
Okay.
But
Cool,
I would check
cool.
it out. It's on DC Universe only. I love DC Universe. I definitely think it's worth its money.
I've been so far really impressed by it.
I haven't checked it out yet. I'm kind of waiting for Titans to come through. That's the real big draw for me.
I am so excited that Jason Todd, who is my favorite Robin, Red Hood, to show up on Titans.
Yeah.
All right, so Derbs, what's on your radar?
I mean, just like a couple of the big ones, like Henry Cavill, no longer Supes. So there's up until a couple days ago, like there was a lot of controversy about either, was it Warner Brothers that dropped him? Was it Cavill that walked away? And I don't know. I have a hard time believing that they're like, okay, we're just hitting kind of the reset button, and I mean, okay, fine. Yeah, Justice League sucked. And everybody is just kind of scrambling a bit there, I'm sure. They're just freaking out. But I mean, they're not getting rid of everybody, If it's just, Affleck and Cavill, well, that's kind of a shakeup, I guess. I mean, not really, though. There has to be something more there to that. I mean,
I know that Cody has very choice opinions of Henry leaving as Superman. I, for one, was literally heartbroken. I'm doing actually a whole story on Superman because I've never really been a fan of Superman. So I'm reading all these titles for a big story that I'm going to present on ComicWatch. So I'm literally heartbroken that Henry is no longer Superman.
I think it sucks. I loved him, and I don't know. I get sentimental. I'm just that kind of person. And I've loved him since The Tudors, which I'm actually watching again. But it's weird to see Henry Cavill playing someone other than Superman. But I don't know. He's just got it. And but at the same time, it's like he can't be bothered to show up as a cameo as Superman because he's doing The Witcher. I mean, okay, yeah, The Witcher's a great video game. Great. But I mean, it's not going to be the next Lord of the Rings. And, it just seems like if he can't be bothered, there's got to be some problem with his relationship with that studio. I mean, there's got to be a problem. And he's probably wanted out for a while.
I absolutely agree with that. Like, you are playing the most iconic figure in Western culture. Maybe barring Jesus. But beyond that, Superman is it. Superman is recognized across the world, and if you can't be bothered to shave your mustache for the reshoots, if you can't be bothered to show up to cameo in somebody else's film, you don't deserve the role. This is an important piece of popular culture that he is taking as a job when he should be taking it as an honor.
Who else are they looking at?
To play devil's advocate, it's also Shazam. Like, for me, this is just not a big movie.
Friendship over.
Okay, but for me...
Yeah, you're fired.
Well, you're going to have to divorce me too then, because I don't give two craps about Shazam, so...
You're both reading 40 issues before the next show.
The two Brians are going to stick together on this, and we're going to agree to disagree.
We're just going to have to split.
Yeah.
We'll do the Brian's podcast, and you guys can...
Right, we're about to have a rogue show. All right, I see.
Yeah. Well, part of my issue is that with Justice League, Cavill displayed a bit of an issue with not, contractually being prohibited from shaving his mustache. And so he put another studio first there. And here, again, he's putting Netflix studios first. So this is 2 times with 2 very high-profile movies that he is putting other studios' needs before WB, when, granted, he's under contract, but there is always a way to break a contract. And there are multiple closets. Nobody's going to give a crap about Mission Impossible 6 in 50 years. If Justice League had been fantastic, there's a very solid chance it would have been a movie that I would be watching years down the line, which as of now, I might watch it 1 or 2 more times in a year or two, but there's a very solid chance that if I don't get the hankering to watch it, I never watch it again and never feel bad about it.
Right.
And that's my issue.
But you're also saying that if Justice League was a great movie, which by most standards it was not. So I kind of agree that, and he's also under contract, which means he would have had to get permission by the company, WB, to do that movie. So they've given him permission to do so. So he's not breaking contract. He's not doing anything that his company didn't want him to. He's not making.
Well, he would have been. Yeah, he would have been breaking a contract if he had shaved his mustache. Though, is what I'm saying.
Right, but I mean that's something that they allowed him to do. He shouldn't be punished for something that your boss is like, "Yeah, go ahead and do it," and then have to do re-edits, which technically, why did you have to do re-edits? Like, what did Snyder do that wasn't that great that they had to go back and reshoot again, which he had another movie planned? He was just trying to make money.
Well, I mean, to be fair, Snyder had to bow out because one of his kids died, I believe.
Oh, well, then I take
committed suicide.
Yeah. So
one of his kids killed himself.
They brought in Joss Whedon to finish the film, and that was when all the reshoots started to happen. It was all in the post-production stage. Okay. So, I mean, I'm not going to blast Zack Snyder for that. I'll blast Zack Snyder for plenty of other things, but not that.
Right. So but my point is that Zack Snyder has done a couple of movies, right? And they weren't that great in the box office. I mean, my point is it's not about whether the movies are great or not. He was doing what he was given permission to do by the company that he works for to play Superman, and he did everything else. He's not able to do Shazam as a simple cameo. I don't feel like it's a big deal. Do I think there's a bigger issue at play? Absolutely. Do I think we're barely getting the bare minimal? Yes. But I mean, overall, I am sad to see Henry go as Superman. I picture him and Tom Welling probably the best Superman. If any of y'all say Dean Cain as your Superman, I will reach beyond this and hit you all. No, but seriously. It's tragic that he has to go because look-wise, whether if you guys agree with his acting methods or not, he fits the profile to play Superman. So I'm sad about it.
No spit curl, I'm not in. That said, let's move on. There's a lot. I mean, we could talk all day about Henry Cavill.
So the only thing I've got is the Captain Marvel, official trailer came out this morning. And that thing went viral faster than, I looked one moment, it was like 51,000 views, looked away, I think for less than 5 minutes, looked back, 75K, just ridiculous. I mean, I don't know.
Old lady punching.
Yeah, I saw that meme. It's awesome now. Like, it's totally viral.
The best.
Yeah, it's I don't know how I became a fan of that character. Like, I don't remember when. I don't. I just know I've been a pretty big fan of Captain Marvel for a while, and I'm looking forward to this. I think it's going to be great. Sam Jackson looks great. I'm glad that he's going to have quite a bit to do with this one because he's just been in and out of the Avengers movies barely for a while now. So it's going to be good.
Yeah, I'm certainly excited for it. I mean, how 90s can they get? She crash lands in a blockbuster.
Yeah.
Oh, be still my heart.
I will admit I have not seen the trailer for it yet.
Oh, watch it. She punches an old lady in the face, and it's probably a Skrull, but maybe it's not. Who cares? I'll never see the movie just so I can have this headcanon going that she punched an old lady in the face. I dropped my book.
Solid. So in more sobering news, in national news, we've seen that actress Fan Bingbing, for those of you that aren't aware of who she is, she played Blink in Days of Futures Past, the X-Men, the second movie in the X-Men trilogy. Well, I guess it might not be a trilogy. We'll see. Jury's still out. She's also the highest paid Chinese actress since 2013. I mean, this girl is lighting up the box office. She is doing huge things. Has not been seen in public since July 1st. There was a brief announcement from Daily Securities, the PRC run media platform, saying that she had been arrested for tax evasion. That has since been rescinded. So there's a whole big controversy surrounding where is Fan Bingbing. Okay, is she under arrest? Is she on house arrest? Is she under one of the infamous Chinese stress sessions? If she is, she's at day 76, which, for those of you that follow the national news along these lines, Ai Weiwei may not have set a record, but has been known to have survived a stress session for 81 days before he caved. So perhaps she'll set that record. We'll see. But Fan Bingbing is out of the public eye. Nobody knows officially for certain what happened. It's something to keep an eye on. We certainly are.
Okay, so just as a segue, I could not help but laugh. It's not about the story, but it's about JJ eating whatever he's eating and making all that noise.
There is absolutely no controlling that man, and that's why we love him.
Yes.
I took a drink.
Well, you took a drink, you adjusted your headset, and everybody got to see your armpit for a good solid, 30 seconds or so.
Guys,
if you weren't aware, I have ADHD and am physically incapable of standing still.
Just make sure, guys.
That's just me.
Every week, make sure you're watching YouTube on Comic-Con on YouTube.
Distracting newscasters since 2018.
Yeah.
All right, so let's move on to the part that I'm sure everybody is dying to hear. Let's move on to our segment, Comic Watch. Each week, we'll each select 3 issues that came out that week that struck us in some way, shape, or form. All 4 of us write reviews for a variety of titles at Comic Watch, along with a team of about 30 other writers. So if there's something you want to hear more about or that you didn't hear about on this show, don't forget to visit us online, take a look at the hottest takes and the hottest books. So why don't we start with you, Brian?
Oh, okay. So yeah, I'm doing mine a little different. I have read all the books, but I'm going to actually steal the summaries from Comicology, and then I'm going to kind of comment on it just because I don't want to give any spoilers away. And if you ever read my reviews on Comic Watch, I spoil a lot. The first one that I want to talk about is Fantastic Four, written by the infamous Dan Slott, art by Sarah Pachilli, and cover by Ishad Ribic. What have Reed, Sue, and the kids have been up to all this time? What adventures have they been on? The strange new friends that they have found along the way? What deadly new enemies have they made? What are Franklin and Valerie's up to? What have the kids been up to? All these questions are answered just in time for the entire universe to die. What that means, I have no idea, but I did love this issue. The kids actually appear a lot older than what they were. They seem to be actual teenagers now. Valerie has a new boo, possibly, on a little universe that Franklin has been creating. Like, as we know, we last saw them on Secret Wars. Dr. Doom destroyed the multi-universe. And all of a sudden, little Franklin is back making multi-universes. But we find out what happens when he stops making universes. And there's a new bad mamma jamma that totally puts the Fantastic Four, or what's left of the Fantastic Four, on the multi-universe out. And then they find a way to bring all of them back, or their family back. We get a reunion, but it's interesting to see the family all in one. And who else? Was it just the regular Fantastic Four, or is it the extended Marvel Universe? I don't know. Check it out.
So there's been a little controversy with that one, right? In the Valerie's new bow.
Yeah.
I vaguely recall seeing on Twitter where people were calling it racist, saying, there's this red alien clearly mocked up like a American Indian Native American being called a native. So do you have any takes on that?
Well, I mean, he definitely looks indigenous. Does it necessarily mean Native American? No. I don't. I didn't read it that way. In fact, this is the first time that I've heard about it. I don't see it that way. He's from a new universe. I mean, Reed was like, oh, he reminds me of somebody. And then he's like, oh, crap, it's me. Let's go. Let's see what's happening. Cool. So, no, I didn't see that at all. Cool. But, I mean, also...
I think he actually reminded Reed of Namor.
Oh, I didn't catch that part. Okay.
Pointy ears, too, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's interesting.
It's a good call.
Yeah, this is one of the reasons why I love JJ. He's been a Fantastic Four fan for years. I did a whole article on Fantastic Four because I hated Fantastic Four. And he made me read a bunch of titles, and I actually fell in love with it. It really, truly is Marvel's first family and the world's greatest comic magazine. I definitely recommend checking it out. For those who say it's boring, it's not. Check out the article. It actually gives you a lot of good stories to pick it up on. It's just an amazing, amazing story, and it's held up throughout the years. My second book, we're going to switch to DC, is Red Hood and the Outlaws 26, written by Scott LaBelle and art by Pete Woods. So Jason Todd is taking a new vigilante to a whole new level. His partners in the former arc was Artemis and Bizarro. They're gone. His mentor, Batman, beat the crap out of him. And it's basically his new operation. He's more brutal. He's on a new mission. He's got a new costume. And very interesting enough, he has a new weapon of choice, and it is a crowbar. If throw back about 30 years, he was killed by a crowbar by the Joker.
He'd probably get over his death faster if he stopped referencing it all the time. Just saying.
Well, you die and you come back, you could be killed and find that you're being replaced and you weren't revenged. You'd probably be pissed off too. I absolutely love this. I love darker comics, especially as I get older, which is probably why I tend to read a little bit more of DC at this point. But I loved it. I mean, he actually stuck something up somebody's butt. So that was pretty amazing.
I did hear that, and that really makes me want to read it.
No, John, I think you would absolutely love it. It's much darker even than the previous run.
It sounds like a return to pre-crisis, Jason, which I loved. So
yeah, he just
definitely
doesn't...
gonna give it a shot.
Yeah, he's just on a mission that he just doesn't give up right now. And he's like, this is who I am. I'm not going to try to be anybody else. Fight me if you have an issue. And he's still trying to do good. He's definitely taking on the true vigilante air. My third and last book is Catwoman, written by Janelle Jones, pencils by Fernando Blanco and Janelle Jones, inks and colors by Laura Allred and John Colazzi. I'm sorry if I am destroying that name. The secret shot caller who's been borrowing Catwoman's MO for a series of crime steps out of the shadows into this issue, and her secret origin is unlike Selina's run before. Meanwhile, the police close in on Catwoman as well. As believed she killed a cop during one of her crimes, but she's being framed. I'm going to be honest with you, this one was not my favorite one out of the group, but I absolutely love Catwoman. I think her story is great, but I do feel like this one was a filler in. Also one of the things that I do want to point out, that the new bad girl does not have a nose. She's actually kills her husband in this issue. I definitely think you should check it out. It's definitely worth it, but I did feel like this one was a filler in between the story gap. And it actually could be read better in a trade.
It does seem very early in the run to be already having filler issues.
Yeah, maybe that's just my perception. And again, Catwoman is one of my favorite ones that I tend to read her first, so I didn't have time to fully review it. But I do remember walking away being like, oh, okay, this is definitely putting the pieces together. And I think that there's a lot of strong possibilities, but I'm just kind of like, oh, okay, let's see what's coming up.
It always feels like when they go from
third issue stump. Sorry.
No, it always just feels like when you have filler issues in the beginning or early on, you're just going from transition from one arc to the next, and it's just not smooth until you get into a into a new arc that's good.
Yeah.
Sometimes that transition's awkward.
Yeah, and I don't want to down it. It's just that it's such a good series, and it's just like this one was like, okay, it's still great. Like I don't want to throw it off as in, it was just so. It was still a great issue, but it definitely was one of those ones that are connecting kind of all the dots, which can be a little slow because we read so many good comics each week that we're spoiled. Like we literally are. We have so many great arcs that we read each week, and sometimes the ones kind of fall through the crack, and I think that's what happened here.
All
That's
right.
it for me this week.
Well, I think the term I like to use is mid-arc or mid-mini slump, which involves towards the tail end of an arc, usually around issue 4 out of 6 or 4 out of 5, 3 out of 5, or 3 out of 4. The issue will be almost entirely devoted to resolving the first act of the issue in an issue of 3 or in a arc of 3 acts, and then moving that into the third act of the story, and in such it'll have almost no soul of its own because it's basically split between 2 small stories. And that recently happened to me with Venom number 4 as well. Just my part.
Yeah, I mean, it's been so jam-packed because we're just coming off the Batman wedding that didn't happen, which I was sorely disappointed that didn't happen. Because how I got into comics originally was seeing Batman Returns in theaters. That was the first comic book that I've ever seen. So for me, like Catwoman and Batman, even though I ended up going into more X-Men and Marvel at the time when I was younger, that was one of my first experiences to it. So that held a special place in my heart. And that's probably why Tom King's run means so much to me, because there was that Catwoman the Catwoman and Batman dynamics that I've always known. Just didn't end how I wanted it to.
Yeah, nostalgia will drive you. I mean, nostalgia is the most powerful thing in fandom, and I'm sure there's crap that I love that's crap, actual crap, because I still love it. And in my head, it seemed different at the time. There's a lot of like themes, especially with the X-Men, stuff that stayed with me with the X-Men over the years that totally hasn't stood up. Not at all. And in my head, though, it's built into something else. And I still go with that going forward. No matter, whatever the writers are doing, whatever the artists are doing, I'm still like going where my nostalgia points me,
Well, while we're talking about crap that you like, why don't you go next, Derbs?
Oh, okay. So I've been just happen to be reviewing the Sync Atlantis with Suicide Squad, and what's pretty cool with this arc is I have no experience with Aquaman or Atlantis as far as the comics are concerned. Like, all I know are kind of like all the memes that just kind of trash on Aquaman and all the everything South Park has done to him, and just all that kind of stuff. And what was interesting when I read Sync Atlantis 1, I was just like, whoa, somebody really loves this comic. Somebody put a lot into Atlantis and made it like, I don't know, there's all these districts and all these places, and I don't know how long that's been around, but it turned it into a place that was actually really interesting. So I read, let's see, trying to remember what order these were in. So I just read Aquaman 39, which is part 2, and then I read Suicide Squad 46, which is part 3, and most of part 2 is just a lot of stuff from part 1 that they cut in and just kind of did from Aquaman's perspective, and then did a bunch of the book from Suicide Squad 45, and then so it's basically Aquaman hunts these guys down, beats up Suicide Squad, and traps 2 of them, while the other guys are just forging ahead, and they've been tricked by Waller to blow up Atlantis. Think Atlantis. Oh, spoiler, but no. It's actually been really good. Like, it makes me want to read Aquaman, which, that's not something I ever thought I would say. That I actually want to read Aquaman now. That's pretty ridiculous. But Queen Mara is pretty cool. Her character's cool. I like all of the Atlanteans, like just the side characters. They're all really, really pretty well done. King Shark is kind of just kind of big and jokey. And everybody wants to see King Shark fight Killer Croc. You're going to see it.
Is King Shark still a Hawaiian god, or have they retconned that out?
I have no idea, because they're just saying I think he's kind of into gangsterism in Atlantis. Like, he's the kingpin of Atlantis. So basically Aquaman is kind of like, hey, these fools are going to blow up Atlantis. You're going to die too. Come help me out. Because they just teamed up recently, I think during the whole metal arc, but if I'm wrong, leave me alone. And then, so without going into any real detail, you can go pick up the floppy and read it yourselves, find out who wrote it and who drew it. Just go buy it. It's good. It's actually a really surprisingly good arc, and to be honest, like, anything after the last arc, I mean, I gave those guys props in my last review because, man, they did a decent job, but those generic cultist, lizard, whatever the fuck they were, I mean, you can believe that out, but seriously, it was just, I just can't stand that trope anymore, to see just a cavern full of, faceless, robed people. And, what's funny is they did it again in Teen Titans with Brother Blood, and hopefully, actually that comes up in the next book I'm reviewing for this. That's Titans 25.
One quick complaint I had about Suicide Squad 46 is that they didn't have any kind of interaction that was meaningful between the squad and King Shark, in that during the New 52, he was one of the main members of the Suicide Squad. He was basically, their trinity was Killer Croc, Deadshot, or not Killer Croc, Harley Quinn, Deadshot, and King Shark. And that was never mentioned. Never once mentioned. And that bothered me a little bit.
It was in Suicide in 46 when they first introduced him, because he's like, Aquaman comes to him and he's like, oh, that's the only reason he wants to actually team up is because these are Waller's people, and Waller's the one who's in charge of it. And he's like, okay, that sounds good. I'll go.
Yeah. I have been reading Aquaman since 25, Derbs, and I never wanted to read Aquaman, but I saw the art of it. I'm a big art person. I will buy a book solely on its art. Cody and I were talking about it. That's not how he does it. But I loved Aquaman, and I actually really look forward to the current arc. And I don't think that King Shark has been mentioned as far as his connection as King.
Yeah, in 46, 46, he was like, yeah, if it'll screw with Waller, I'll go take them out. And I think he mentions it when he actually first dives in after Croc. But I'd have to look at that. But Harley, man, I wish she would be written more consistently. I know she's a crazy, wacky chick, but I don't know. Some people write her really well, and other people just, try to write her, and you can tell. But the next book I've got is I've got Titans 25. So this new Titans group, man. I know you're a big Titans fan, Brian, but so it's basically become a monster of the week, or in this case, month situation, and their specialty is to, their mission is to be an arm of the Justice League that goes after all these meta events just from fallout from material and radiation from the breach in the, what is it called? The cosmic gate. What the crap is it? The something wall, the source wall. Yeah. So, and I read that whole arc. I thought it was pretty cool. And I actually thought this was going to be pretty interesting. And, it's entertaining, but it is just pure action. And the interactions between the Titans, I mean, there's some tension there because Megan is, she's got some type of hidden agenda that we're not aware of yet. We're not quite sure what's going on with that. And Robin can kind of, Nightwing can kind of tell that something's up. And this kind of explores that and kind of teases it apart and kind of brings them together at the end. But the way it's done is just, you got one big bad that half the squad's fighting, right? Half the team is fighting. And then they're stuck in this weird psychological dreamscape where they're in a TV and they're changing genres as this woman changes her TV channel. Some typical DC sci-fi nonsense, right? Like very, very DC sci-fi nonsense. And okay, but it's just not, it's just not doing it for me. And the last one was all right. And I mean, I'm probably going to be pretty kind in my review, just because I don't hate it and I appreciate the work they're doing with it. But again, relative to a lot of the other stuff that's out there, I don't know. I don't know if I'd be reading this if I wasn't reviewing it,
Right.
I read it. I actually enjoyed it pretty much. I thought the Miss Martian and Nightwing, I kind of knew that was going to happen. I actually like that they don't like each other. And I kind of wish that's going to stay a little bit longer. I enjoyed it. I agree with Jerbs that it's probably not the best story, but I would totally read it. I don't review it, but I still enjoy it. I'm going to stick with it a little bit longer.
Well, if you're reading it for the action, for sure. But I guess the last Titans group, and you got me into this, Brian, but the last Titans group, like I really got into the balance and the relationships going on with those characters. Like I was like, holy crap, Robin, help me. So Nightwing and Wally's relationship is really, really heartwarming. Like it's a really great relationship, and there's others as well. And now there's kind of none of that.
Yeah.
And Raven feels like she's tacked on, and now she's half of herself because the other half of her is trapped in another dimension. And which is cool. That's interesting. That'll be cool to see get resolved. But at the same time, she's just kind of tacked on, and she's like a really great character. And
Yeah. No, I actually agree. I loved the last group of Titans so much more than I did do this one. I think I was the biggest complainer when it had to do with the new team. I love that Donna and Arsenal's relationship and how he was still struggling with his addiction.
Yeah.
I love that, like you said, Nightwing and Wally West's relationship. I think it was so well done. And I do agree that it's hard to read this new arc that we have compared to what we had before. But all in all, I'm in it, so we'll see what happens.
I mean, Donna's barely there. That's the thing. Donna's kind of barely there. I was like, oh, right, Raven's back. Kind of. And, yeah. And I'm a big Beast Boy fan. I love Beast Boy. And they've made him kind of he's now, like, his powers are all jacked up by this, cosmic radiation. And he's now kind of Mr. Grumpus. And he's just not fun anymore. And, sometimes his comic relief could be really jarring, but at least it's always been part of his character, and now it's just kind of like grumble, quip here and there, but he's not Beast Boy right now, and it makes everything just kind of snore a little bit.
I wonder.
That's all I got.
I wonder how much of the story right now, kind of in a holding pattern, has to do with Heroes in Crisis, which comes out the 26th, if I'm not mistaken. So Heroes in Crisis, the first issue, we're pretty much promised that some Titan that we have grown to love over the years is going to die. So what do you do with your series if you know that you're going to lose? Arsenal is a favorite for.
It's going to be
Death
Roy
Toll.
and Ivy. Calling it now.
I think you're probably right. But
You're damn right I'm right.
It could be Wally. I think that there's this pretty strong chance it could be Wally. We could lose Kyle.
How many times does that guy have to die?
All of them.
Well, there can't be a crisis without a Flash dying. It's a thing.
I don't feel like it's going to be Wally. I really don't, because he just came back like 2 years ago. Well, 3 weeks ago in comic book worlds.
So I think odds-on favorite is Roy, which is hard because he's a major player in his book.
Well, both of the characters, Roy and Ivy, recently had like weirdly out of place, heartfelt goodbye issues. Ivy and the Poison Ivy arc right before the wedding, I think it was like 39 through 42 ish, and Roy and the Red Hood and the Outlaws annual. So both characters had, and that's usually kind of a dead giveaway that they're about to do a big old kill a character off because they want to tug at the heartstrings right before they kill him.
Right.
And so that's part of why my eyes are on Roy and Ivy.
I certainly hope it's not Roy.
Me too. I love Roy. I freaking love Roy. I've loved him since 1997 or so when they did the Batman Plus Arsenal one shot. Oh my god, it was so good. He solved a mystery with Batman despite Batman's obvious derision of him in order to get his daughter back from his ex-wife. It was amazing. And even since then, you had issues of Red Hood and the Outlaws where Roy confronted his alcoholism and tried to have Killer Croc eat him. Like, he's been a great character since the start. Or since the mid-90s.
I might put my money on Donna. I could see her as someone who, I mean, even though they've been downplaying her, she was such a big player in the last series. Mm-hmm. And I could see her sacrificing herself for some, big gain. So, I don't know. Donna seems like a pretty good bet for me.
Should we take a vote and make our announcements now to see who's going to be the one to kill?
We can. Brian?
I'm going to say, unfortunately, Roy.
Okay. JJ, you've already said Roy and Poison Ivy. I'm going to go out of left field. I'm going to take the long shot odds, and I'm going to say Kyle Rayner. I think we're due for a Kyle Rayner death.
Yeah, he's the only major Lantern who hasn't really had some kind of death or death-esque event. So that would be a safe one to go by.
So, JJ, what books did you read this week?
Oh, I got an absurd number of books. Actually, I got 23 new books and an omnibus this week. But the three I figured I'd talk about in this slightly truncated format are Detective number 988, Superman number 3, and Amazing Spider-Man number 5. I'm going to go ahead and start with Detective. So, Detective Comics number 988 was written by James Robinson, who recently ran into some contention from from fans with his Wonder Woman run, which a lot of people didn't like. And I have to say, this is probably the best Batman issue I've read in over a year. Or about a year. He has a bit of solid detective work, not like, Dustin for Fingerprints detective work, but Batman detective work where, he sees a guy's name and he goes to his house, which is pretty basic detective work if you ask me. But it did have a slight candid moment with Gordon, which was pretty interesting and kind of funny. And then he touched on the wedding without derailing the entire issue or entire arc to talk about it, and managed to move on from the wedding and have a solid Batman issue where he did a little bit of detective work in solving the murder of Harold Frank. He goes to Harold Frank's house, and on the way over there, he talks to Alfred, which it did bother me slightly that he used Alfred's real name over comms, because Batman, of all people, has been the most militant over the years as to not using real names over comms. And he did the same thing in Justice League recently, and it bothered me really greatly when he was over comms talking to Superman, and he said, "Clark, I could make you dance if I want you to." And it actually ended up being it didn't end up being a thing within the story, but Lex Luthor did end up being right around the corner from him, tapped into his comms. So it's not like Batman has these unhackable comms that can't be. Nothing's unhackable in this day and age. And it really greatly bothered me that he was using real names. So he gets to Harold Frank's house, and Harold Frank has some kind of secret, like, terrorist cell torture room in his apartment. And just as he starts to get into it and look for clues, one of the Fireflies shows up and burns the place to the ground. And it was really interesting to me that the first Firefly that showed up was the protege of the second Firefly, whose name is escaping me right now. But and it was kind of funny that the new Firefly's name was Bridget, which is the name of the Firefly in Gotham, who is also a girl.
Right.
And so I thought that was kind of interesting, and maybe it was a little nod towards the show. And he did say that the new Firefly was acting more recklessly than he had before, because before he was more like a contract killer almost, or like not like Garfield Lynns, who was basically a serial arsonist working just for the joy of watching things burn.
Right.
And so I did like that he noticed that about them, and it did seem like Alfred was feeding him a dossier of information, which I thought was a nice touch and felt like it should. And likewise, I liked that he used knowing that the young Firefly was inexperienced against her, with her not understanding the laws of momentum when you're in the air floating on a jetpack, where if a person swings into you, it's going to knock you off your butt, because you don't have anything anchoring you to the ground, which I thought was pretty interesting. He does eventually run into the second Firefly, whose name I again have forgotten. Right? Who knows? I know Garfield Lynns all day. But so I thought that was a really interesting touch, and it seems like it was a mob hit kind of thing, because that Garfield doesn't usually just burn things down just to burn them down. Likewise, it's interesting because the arc we do know is a Two-Face arc, and so it does take a little bit of the mystery out of it, but it has been solicited that the bad guy is going to be Two-Face most likely. And they do say that Harold Frank was killed with two guns, but it was from two trajectories, which would indicate two shooters, not one person using two guns. But likewise, we have two Fireflies. So there are two...
Ted Carson, Firefly number 2.
Thank you. Okay, so that'd be my first book. I really liked it. Honestly, best Batman book I've read in some time. Batman does confront his feelings, as Tom King is like to do, but also manages to punch someone in the face, which I love. So I'd call that just a rock solid reason to read that book. Like, Detective 988 is well worth the absurd amount they're charging for books these days. So next on the docket would be Amazing Spider-Man number 5, which is by Nick Spencer and Ryan Ottley. And so, there we go. It starts out with a weird moment with MJ, where she mentions that Peter hasn't been superheroing as much as he was previously. And then she says that she really liked the superheroing, and she wishes he was a hero still after he confesses that he split with Spider-Man. The next page is a recap with no clear reason why we need to recap 5 issues into an arc. I just thought it was really weird to include a recap for people who may not have been reading it, I guess. But 5 issues in, like, why are you already rehashing your story? Like, it's so convoluted. We need a bullet point, page by page rundown of what's going on. So next, Peter starts walking over to his roommate, which is Robbie Robertson's son, Hobie Robertson, and talking to him about the genetic recombinator and how valuable it is, and if he could only steal it from Hall 44 at Empire State College from Dr. Kurt Connors, right within earshot of his idiot roommate, Boomerang, So Peter was recently split, and he was shown to have released or lost some of his intelligence, and he's now kind of a dumber version of Peter. But apparently the only person dumber than Peter is the person who fell for this sitcom ploy, which is Boomerang, his roommate. So Boomerang pulls off the heist of the century and steals the genetic recombinator from Empire State University and brings it back to their apartment. And as such, Peter gets hold of it, and the genetic recombinator is, of course, the machine that made the spider radioactive, that made Spider-Man Spider-Man, and somehow split Spider-Man into 2. And Spider-Man thinks that by using it somehow, he's not sure, and we're not sure because they never tell us, that the 2 Spider-Men Spider-Mans, the plural of Spider-Man is Spider-Mans, by the way. Spider-Men implies 2 men who are spiders, and
Sure.
the Spider-Mans implies there are 2 men named Spider-Man. Just saying.
We're educational as well.
I am a writer. So he tracks down Spider-Man, who's hanging out in some kind of stupid-looking web hammock being a jerk because Spider-Man, once they're split, loses his sense of responsibility and doesn't care about being a superhero anymore. And he tells Peter that Peter starts going into a long explanation of why they need to recombine. And Spider-Man goes, "Sorry, wasn't listening." And he says, "Why?" He says, "Because of the giant robot army behind you." And we turn around, and there is, in fact, a giant robot army behind them. So we cut away to Mendel Strom, who was Norman Osborn's partner in the Silver Age, who became a cyborg in order to fight Norman Osborn and Spider-Man in order to prove he was superior to Norman Osborn, who became the Green Goblin while Strom faded into obscurity and eventually developed a complex, apparently. And so we cut away to him, and he's being attacked by whoever our nightmare villain is, who attacks people with centipedes and has no eyes and is pretty darn scary looking, actually. Otley did a really great job with that. He's really good with monsters. If you've read Invincible, you'd know. And so we cut away to Peter and Spider-Man running from an army of Tri-Sentinels, like 24 Tri-Sentinels.
Why not?
And they run away.
Why not?
Yeah, why not? And as they're running away, Peter sees the Tri-Sentinel charging up a blast, and it blasts the ground behind him as he shoves Spider-Man out of the way due to his inflated sense of responsibility. And Peter is mortally wounded. As he's laying on the ground and Spider-Man stops to comfort him as he dies, he takes the web shooter and shoots the genetic recombinator and pulls it down towards them. It explodes on the ground, and although nothing thus far has indicated this would happen, I want to stress that it recombines them. And as they're recombined,
Shocker.
Spider-Man says to Peter hey man, you really ought to take a day off sometime. like that's his dying words.
Oh my
like,
god.
You wanted to take a break? You really should have taken a break. You should take a break. Take a break sometimes. And then they combine.
Wow.
After they combine, Peter Parker, combined with Spider-Man again, regains his knowledge of science and his basic intelligence and immediately hacks the army of Tri-Sentinels like it's not even a thing. Like, literally, one, maybe two panels, and now they're hacked together. Or now all the Sentinels are hacked together. And he flies away with an army of Tri-Sentinels saying, you know, I bet I'll be doing a never-ending story cosplay by the end of the day. Yeah, that's a big one. And then he gets back to Strom's lab to find Strom dead. And as Strom dying, and as Strom dies, he says, guess my name. And then suddenly, all the Sentinels around Peter start saying it too. Guess my name, guess my name, guess my name. And exploding. After the last Tri-Sentinels exploded, Spider-Man's standing there in a barren wasteland full of 50-foot tall robots that exploded and says, what just happened? And I want to know too. I would love to know what just happened. I would fucking love it! But no, we're going to cut away to Taskmaster and Black Ant in the custody of not S.H.I.E.L.D. Not S.H.I.E.L.D. It's not S.H.I.E.L.D. And they even make fun of the fact it's not S.H.I.E.L.D. And as they're kind of belittling their interrogator, which is great, they say, oh, and one last thing, never interrogate a supervillain right next to an exterior wall. And the exterior wall blows out, and they hop in a helicopter and fly away. And it's not even a thing. They were captured just for fun, maybe? They enjoyed being captured. I don't know. And then we cut away to the scene literally everybody has been expecting since issue 2, which is the big white hunter in Africa being hunted by some unknown entity. And I would bet all three of you, not having read the issue, could guess who's hunting people in Africa. Definitely Cody. Go ahead and give it a shot.
I'm going to throw a stab and say Craven, but I haven't been reading Spider-Man in about 10 years.
Brian's, got any guess?
I'm not doing this. No. I've actually read, I haven't read this issue, but I have read the last 3. I actually don't know.
How about you, Derbs?
Well, I mean, it's Craven, right?
It's Craven! God! We just tore that up for 4 issues! Alright, moving on.
So can I take it that you're not really totally feeling Amazing Spider-Man right now?
Nothing's surprising me. Nothing is surprising me. Every stupid little thing is stupid. Nick Spencer is taking Spider-Man in the stupidest possible direction with a weird, shocking relevance for Eric Larson's run in 1993. So far, I'd say 7 or 8 out of the 10 villains he's cameoed have played big parts in Eric Larson's run on Spider-Man. It's like he read 20 issues of Spider-Man and then said, that's all the Spider-Man I'll ever know, and then write an entire story based on that. And that's all I have to say about that, to quote Forrest Gump. All right, on to Superman number 3. Sorry. So, Superman number 3 by Brian Michael Bendis is, as I like to call him, BM Bendis, as I'm sure he was called in middle school. Starts with a Livewire cameo because Bendis just absolutely adores throwing in cameos of third-tier villains in order.
I think we just lost John.
And that was Superman, folks.
I loved the Superman. Are you guys reading it?
I'm buying it. I haven't read it yet.
Are you completely caught up until this issue?
Me? No,
Yeah.
no. I haven't read number 1 yet. Full disclosure, I'm not a big Brian Michael Bendis fan. I absolutely loved Cover. I absolutely loved his Daredevil run. Pretty much everything else I can take or leave.
Okay.
Yeah, I've only read those. I haven't read anything else he's done.
Try Man of Steel, the newest Bendis.
I did read Man of Steel.
I love that one.
I did not care for it, but I was expecting something grander, something more, I don't know, character defining. And what I got was just a 6-part Superman story that, kind of sets up the pieces that he wants to play with. And that's cool. But when you name something Man of Steel, with the John Byrne, 86 miniseries being so integral to the history of Superman, you set yourself up for failure because the expectation is there that this is going to be definitive. This is going to be important.
Yeah, I absolutely loved it because, again, I'm not that versed in Superman outside of Smallville and the movies. But honestly, it was a really good run because, as we know, Little John and Lois are on this adventure. There were some really, really heartwarming times when he was alone and he would be remembering his family time and he's waking up alone. For me, it was a really great run. Bendis really was able to pull out that emotion from the audience, I felt. But again, I don't have enough history with Superman to be like, oh yeah, that was or that was so amazing that what he was able to do. I don't know. I'm enjoying it. This run is a little chaotic, just because there's so much going on from one issue to the next. I was like, what? How did we even get here? And then I had to remember the last issue. It doesn't help that it only comes out monthly. And I'm like, what? I've read like 100 since then. I have to go back and read. And then I don't because I have 100 issues I have to read.
So we just got word from JJ. His phone died on him. He's got to be done for the night, which is unfortunate, but we look forward to seeing him again next week with a fully charged phone. We'll work on that. I guess I'll hit my reviews. I want to keep my reviews kind of short and quick because we're running a little bit long on time, and I'm sure everybody is getting a little antsy, an hour into a video. But so for me this week, I'd like to talk about Flash 54, which is the Grips of Strength conclusion. The first issue of the Iceman miniseries, and I would just be cheating everybody if I didn't talk about Hawkman a little bit. So let's see if I can figure out how to do this without it being awkward. Me controlling. Sorry, bear with me, folks. Come on. There we go. So Flash 54, it's the end of the Grips of Strength story arc. We've got Axel Walker, the Trickster, has taken on the Strength Force. It's one of the new forces that was freed by the Force Barrier break with Barry and Wally's race. Terribly, what's the word I'm looking for? Totally irresponsible, running around wild. So Axel's got the power. He's got this Strength Force. Barry picks it up at the end of the last issue. They're trapped in Iron Heights prison. Warden Wolf has them against the wall. Commander Cold, who is one of the renegades from the 25th century, seems to be turning on Barry. Everything is going terrible. And Barry finally remembers that his greatest power is his mind. It's not really his speed. I mean, his speed is great. But Barry is smart. He's an intelligent man. So he starts thinking about the power and realizes that the Strength Force is rooted in gravitational pull, right? So he figures out a way to, quantum smash with Axel Walker and take away both of their Strength Force powers, right? Like they can burn it off, get rid of it. And they do so in the Rogue's hidden prison there in Iron Heights. which leaves Axel holding up the roof while the rest of the rogues are unconscious, and he has this heartbreaking, begging moment, like, Barry, get them out of here, they're my family. It's a beautiful send-off for this arc. He's going to sacrifice himself, the roof comes down, everyone's out free. Great. Wonderful. Of course, we're going to go back on that 6 pages later, and you see that he was rescued somehow by Jesse James, the original trickster. And then you get this weird moment with Iris and Barry, right? The whole time for like the last like 6 or 7 issues, Iris has her memories back. She remembers being married to Barry. Barry doesn't know that. So she's hiding this, and here she's calling him out for keeping secrets from her. The whole thing is just really, really tension-laden. Let me stop this for a second. This had all the markings of an arc that was set to set up something else later. 3 issues of not a whole lot happening, a few explanations, a few character interactions, a lot of mounting tension. And let me go on record saying that Joshua Williamson's arc, his run on Flash since Rebirth, I've really enjoyed. But there are moments in it that don't stand on their own very well. And I thought this was one of them. I thought Christian, I have no idea how to say his last name. I'm going to say Duce. It's D-U-C-E. His art was magnificent. Steve Wan's odd letters, as always, is just a consummate professional. Luis Guerrero's colors have been really bright and vibrant. But the art just kind of fell a little bit flat, especially following something like Flash War. So it's been a roller coaster with Flash. I still will continue to buy it. I will always buy Flash. Anytime there's some major event in the DC universe, Flash is always at the center. If you're not reading Flash, you're missing something. On to Iceman. Now, I've been a pretty outspoken proponent of Iceman and Cinegrace's Iceman since it started. So I was really excited. I was really disappointed when the first series got canceled, although I get it, the sales were not there. Then they announced that it's coming back. I get excited again, and then it comes back. And you've got this kind of weird buddy cop Morlock tunnels set up where Bobby and Bishop go down there and encounter a group of faux rotters, like not marauders, trying to have a mutant massacre volume 2, and they thwart this and they send them back into Mr. Sinister, and it just felt like the punch was missing. The emotional draw, the ability to make you feel like Bobby is struggling. You know, he's got this huge life transition. He's queer now. He's trying to adapt to that, but also he's only known being a superhero his entire life. And I thought that that was really well captured in the first 11 issues. And then this first issue, it feels like, well, we're going to push that to the side and we're going to try to set up this, you know, Bobby is a super powerful mutant and he should get more respect. And it just fell a little bit flat for me. Nathan Stockman on art. He's an Irish freelancer. I've only seen a few pages of his Spidey work, like actually like Spidey, Spidey. I didn't know that was a thing, but he's been working on that book. And his art style to me is, I would call it developing. Like he's got a lot of potential, but it's not quite there yet for, you know, primetime stage, which is fine. Like not everybody can be a Brian Hitch right out of the gates, who I'll go on to next and atoll the praises of because I love Brian Hitch. So for me, Iceman 1, it's out, it's enjoyable. Lower your expectations if you haven't read it yet. Just try to read it as a fun buddy cop setup. It looks like it's a 5-issue miniseries. I thought it was going to be an ongoing. Maybe somebody at Marvel read it and decided it wasn't. I don't know. I don't know how that played out. But I love Cinegrace. No disrespect intended. It just wasn't where I wanted it to be. And then Hawkman. I love Hawkman. Let me do the Drake thing, right? Boom, boom, boom. I love Hawkman. Robert Venditti, Brian Hitch. Andrew Curry, Daniel Enrique, Andy Owens. You've got Starkings and Comicraft on letters. You've got Jeremiah Skipper just crushing the colors. This is the most gorgeous book on the stands right now. I'm going to go back to some images here. Just to give you, if you haven't picked up Hawkman, we're 4 issues in. We're dealing with a Carter Hall who is potentially responsible for some kind of cataclysmic event, or maybe he's meant to stop it. I don't know. But look at the light work. Look at the color work, the muted tones that they use throughout the whole thing, and then you've got these flashes of color throughout. I mean, it is just one of the most gorgeous books. It's exciting every month. This month takes us back to the 90s. We got Qatar Hall on Thanagar calling people meat, doing his hard-nosed cop thing. It's been a fantastic book. I am just firewall 10s all across the board. A+, A+, A+. If you're not reading Hawkman, you are losing out. Did I not save that page? I guess I didn't. Here's your cover. Here you've got, Carter Hall, current, present day, flashed back, interacting with Qatar Hall. It's just a fanboy's dream. It's a fanboy's dream. And that is it for me in reviews. So, any comments from the Peanut Gallery before we move on?
I don't think I'm reading any of the books that you are.
Coincidentally, I'm not reading any of the ones that you are.
Yeah, high five. No,
it works well, though.
Yeah, no, I actually really, that's the first time I've seen the inside of Hawkman. I actually really agree with you on the art. It looks really pretty. I love the pink tones, the undertones. It does look really pretty.
That's the thing about being reviewers. I mean, you kind of read what you review and, have to cherry pick what you're going to read for pleasure. And I don't think any of us really sync up with, I don't think I'm reading what you guys are reading at all.
I think we might have some overlap in the X books, but that's pretty much about it right now. I mean, I'm mostly week to week reading what I'm reviewing because I'm reviewing these 3 plus X-Men Red, Green Arrow, Deathstroke. I'm on for Batman the Damned cover, Heroes in Crisis. Like the list goes on. I'm reviewing a lot of stuff right now. Oh. All right, so nearly every week there's that one issue that everybody seems to be talking about. And I think we can all agree that this week it was Champions 24. Mm-hmm. You've got the setup is, you've got a one-off issue. It starts out with a little blurb like we interrupt this broadcast for breaking news. And you have an issue devoted to school shootings. And not in a way that it's devoted to the shooting and the action and live shooter drill, but it's devoted to the survivors. And I mean, I would love to hear what you guys have to think. I thought this was just one of the most beautiful, poignant, heartbreaking issues I've read in years.
I agree with you 100%. This issue, it really was heartbreaking. It was beautiful. It was everything that you would want in this type of story, which you don't want it, but there are certain parts of this book that are just amazing. And and I guess Champions is a perfect book to read because they're all in high school. I don't know the generation that's reading it, but I feel like it's like happening so much that we had to have a comic book or a comic book to kind of be like, hey, we need to recognize this. We need to recognize that you're not alone because it's happening so much. And I really, really appreciate Marvel taking this risk and being like, hey, we need to do something. And your guys aren't alone. This is how superheroes can't save everybody. And it's just an amazing, amazing arc. And it's beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, I think the greatest part for me was when Morales is in talking with a counselor, and she said, you couldn't have done anything. You're not a superhero. And what's interesting is that's not really about superheroes. That moment isn't really about superheroes. That's about survivor's guilt. And survivor's guilt is it's a toughie. It's a tough one. And they're kind of just trying to show you that, theoretically, no matter who you are, no matter what you think you could have done to stop whatever traumatic event it is, whether it's a school shooting or whatever else it is, wouldn't really matter if you were a superhero or not, let alone whatever it is you are in real life, And I really thought that moment was that was a really good moment, and I kind of feel like that's pretty much what the entire issue is about. But I think they handled it really they handled it really reverently. They I don't know if the comics was necessary. I mean, maybe, but that doesn't really matter. The point is they did it, and they did it really well, and that's really all I care about.
And let's not forget that one of their friends ended up being shot, who was Goldballs from X-Men. Mm-hmm. And seeing how they reacted, and this just came to mind to me right now, is that they all go back to school. Weeks have passed. They're in school and they do a drill. And the artist did such an amazing job of showing their faces and expressions about them just reliving and truly having a type of PTSD where they're terrified, even though they know it's a drill. And that moment was truly heartbreaking for me. And I remember reading it, and it still gives me goosebumps right now, just thinking that. And this is something that's still happening and has happened several times within the last decade or so. And I think it was necessary because school is just starting back. And, it's almost fearful to send our kids, or those who have kids, back to school, because we don't know where it's going to happen. We don't know what this year is going to bring. I mean, I hope nothing, but it's such a sad reality that we live in this, and that Marvel, I think, did a great job at handling the situation.
Well, I wasn't saying that I didn't think it was necessary, and that I think it is necessary that the topic should be discussed and broached. It's just that at this point, it's been done a bit. But yeah, I mean, again, a bit of awareness never hurts. A bit of compassion for the people that are involved in those types of things. That's never a bad thing.
I think what struck me most about this issue is, we're in an era where the mainstream is being accused of overly politicizing the comics, right? But this isn't a gun control issue. This isn't a who is the shooter issue. We never know really who the shooter is. We don't really find out much about the shooter. This is really a depoliticized look at something that's really happening in a book full of the characters that people are saying are overly politicized. You've got the Amadeus Cho Hulk, or whatever they switched his name to. You've got Kamala Khan, Miss Marvel. You've got Miles Morales, Spider-Man. I mean, these are three of the bigger targets by groups that say, comics are suffering from over-diversity. And then you've got these characters mobilized in a way that I don't know how you could argue that there's a leftist slant on it, that there's a righty slant on it. Like, this is really neutral ground. Let's look and see what it's like to know that you maybe could have stopped something, but you weren't there. Like, it reminds me of the John A. Ryber, John Cassaday, Captain America series that came out just post 9/11, where you see Cap digging through the rubble and Fury saying, "Look, it's not your fault. You weren't there. The next thing starts now."
I agree.
And that's a book that that Captain America I can't read without choking up. Yeah, I
It's
thought
like
that
how
was
many
just so
times
marvelously well done.
yeah. I mean, how many times in comics the most potent moments are when the hero feels helpless? You know, I mean, that's I think one of the things, or maybe the main thing about Superman that is really important is that he's the most powerful person on the planet, pretty much, and yet, you know, he limits himself, and he feels this type of powerlessness with regards to it, and that makes him, you know, who he is. You know, Spider-Man, you know, can't save everybody. You know, I mean, you know, it's again, it's one of those things that has always kept me going back to comics, because that as a normal person, you feel helpless all the time, you know, in one way or another. I mean, and all we're doing is just discussing how we feel helpless through this medium. You know, we're using this medium to you know, sometimes we're using it to have these fantasies with superheroes to experience what it would be to not be helpless. You know,
right?
That's the whole idea. That's what a superhero is. But once you take the humanity out of it, and you know, you're just kind of reading something that's just action, or just, you know, just, you can kind of feel the commercial movement pushing that comic on you. You know, that starts to just lose me. Once you get back down to kind of the gritty human, you know, for me, that's where the rubber hits the road for comics. And this was a surprise. Like, I'm not as plugged in as you guys are, as far as like kind of what's coming up. You guys are more into the news than I am. But that issue, like, you guys chose it, and I read it, and I was like, oh, screw you guys. I was feeling good today. I was feeling good today, damn it. But yeah, it was good. It was really good.
Well, with that under wraps, I mean, I thought it was just a marvelous episode, marvelous issue. Jim Zub just crushed it. I would have to go back and look and see who the artist is. I'm a little bit behind on Champions, so I read this one out of stride. But with that said, so last but not least, we'll look at Future Watch. Wednesday's New Comic Book Day. That will be the day that this will be airing. So what are you guys looking forward to next week?
I am looking forward to Pearl #2. I'm also reviewing it. I am absolutely in love with this title. I'm not sure where it's quite going, but I'm literally going to buy it. Well, I wouldn't. I would just buy it for the art, because it's just so stellar.
Nice. It's Gaidos on art, right?
Yeah. Wait, I'm sorry, who?
Michael Gaidos?
Yes, correct. Yeah. It's just a beautiful story so far. I'm really excited to see where it goes. But the art is just stellar. My second title that I'm looking forward to is Mrs. and Mr. X, or Mr. and Mrs. X. I love that storyline. I love Rogue and Gambit. I hate the title of the book, but
Yeah.
So bad.
Yeah, but all in all, I grew up, like, literally the first like couple that I've seen was Rogue and Gambit. Although they weren't a couple, they were a couple. They kind of were a couple. Who knows? But to see that pay off, like when I was like 5 or maybe 6 or 7, seeing them, and now them actually being married 3, however many years later, it's finally like, yes. And the only other one I'm kind of interested in, well, I'm interested in a lot, but the ones that I'm out of my top 3 would be The Return of Wolverine 1, which is really funny for me to say that, because I'm not
Claws.
Yeah. I'm not really the biggest fan of Wolverine, but I like all the other side stories that are being included within the title, like how Psylocke automatically is old Psylocke again. Like, what? Where is this going to go? So I'm more interested in the side stories than Hot Claws returning. But let's see where it goes. I'm down. Let's go.
Fair enough. What about you, Derbs?
I think the one I'm actually looking forward to, and I review it, but that doesn't really matter. I actually really like it. I've been liking this new Teen Titans.
Okay.
I think the squad is awesome. Damien's edgier. I mean, he's an edgelord anyway, but I mean, he's he's done. Like, he's done playing it the Boy Scout way. He's done with Batman. He's done with Superman's way. The Justice League kind of irks him. He wants to go this way, the way he wants to go. And coming off the last issue was a really emotional, really well done issue. You know, they had a loss with Roundhouse, which, I mean, you know, he's a new guy. He was only in 2 comics, but I mean, it was pretty sweet. And you know, he went out in a, you know, who can actually say, you know, they saved the city from a nuclear bomb, you know, by blowing up with it. You know, not a lot of people can say that, except for Batman in the second movie, but he didn't really die, so what a wuss. But I'm getting my variant cover with my new bestest girlfriend, Crush. I love Crush. She's like she's a big tanky girl, and I love big tanky girls, and she's just she's got that Lobo attitude, but she's not so over the top that she's like, you know, just eye-rollingly terrible. She's just actually always pretty pissed, always the first one to jump out and rush at anything, and their dialogue is really good, and you know, that book, the new Teen Titans is actually really good. I've been enjoying it.
Awesome. Well, I mean, we'd be remiss not to mention, after all the talk we had already, Batman 55 comes out tomorrow. This is supposedly the issue where Dick Grayson gets the batarang-shaped scar that's supposedly going to have a major impact on his book. So that's something that certainly a lot of people will be reading. That comes out tomorrow. And for me personally, Batman the Damned, Brian Azzarello, Lee Bermejo.
Oh, that comes out tomorrow?
That comes out tomorrow. It's on the new DC Black Label prestige format. I think it's like $8, but like, I don't know, however many pages. It doesn't matter. You put Azzarello and Bermejo together on a book, I'm going to buy it. I don't care how much you put on it. Yep. It looks absolutely gorgeous. I have no idea what it's about. I've been trying to avoid finding out what it's about because I want to be surprised once in a while. So that's, for me, that is like the reason to go to the shop tomorrow. That's going to be amazing. And I will be also reviewing that.
I mean, just for the art. I mean,
if nothing else.
You say that, you know, you'll buy a book just for the art, Brian, but I don't know anybody who likes comics that won't do that. You know, like, I don't know anybody. That doesn't mean there isn't anybody, but I mean, I don't know anybody who won't just.
I tend to be one as well. Like, I tend to follow writers over artists. I can get over bad art if the writing is good enough. But in this case, I mean, this is a team that I've read before, knocked out of the park. Batman, was it Batman Deathblow? That miniseries they did together was amazing. Man of Steel, the Lex Luthor miniseries. If you guys haven't picked that up, highly, highly recommended. So.
It's like the art on cover, like cover totally just seeing just you know, the cover on cover.
Right. Right.
Yeah, I was just like, that's going to be interesting. But yeah.
Right. All right. I think this is the end of show number 1.
I think it is. So from all of us here at Comic Watch, thanks for tuning in. We'll be back next Wednesday, and remember, we'll be watching.
Who's going to watch the Watchers? Hopefully you.
So good.
Bye, guys.